This is the one that is the most dangerous and severe storm now. But look what's happening to this. You see how this is weakening as well? Still has a little bit of red in it. That's right over Excelsior Springs, so some brief downpours. Now what you're looking at too is where the heaviest rain is coming down. Just to the southeast of that would be where the prime rotation would potentially be. So right in there, almost in the middle of that tornado-warned polygon. But it's now starting to move and shift. We're getting to the northern end of that polygon as well. And we'll keep it right here until that storm has safely passed. But evidently there must be a little bit of a wind current or something in the air that's creating this, because we've had two separate cells within Clay County that have both been warned tornadic. And neither one are very impressive to look at on the Doppler radar screen in terms of size. It's all the dynamics and the internal structure of these storms that are producing what appears to be weak little spin-up tornadoes. Again, I've really want to take a look at NWS chat. Oh, we have Mobile Storm Tracker Live that's up there on the way to Excelsior Springs to check out these storms. And of course, we'll send the crews over towards the Smithville vicinity too to see if there has been any damage reported. And Sarah, I know that you're listening to me. If you could call up to the assignment desk to see if anybody has reported into KCTV5 any sort of storm damage, I'd be really happy to hear that and to share that as well. But you can see Storm Tracker 5 is moving through the metro right now. We'll be hitting on I-35 here, crossing the Bond Bridge, and then it should be a matter, there's what, Sarah? Okay, we have no damage reported just yet. That's fantastic news. Again, probably not surprising, judging from the size of these storms, and especially putting the Doppler radar scope on these and showing that the rotation does not appear to be overly strong or overly tight, at least at this time, from what I could see anyway. So again, this is not very surprising, but again, we have had two separate tornado warnings and one that is ongoing in Clay County, and that of course has all of us very concerned at KCTV5. Public safety is our #1 goal here, and that's why we're on the air right now. And again, my apologies for covering up your favorite program at this hour in the afternoon, but again, this always takes priority. This is the red polygon that you can see underneath that small little storm. Not very impressive to look at once again, but it is strong enough to prompt this tornado warning from the National Weather Service. It is in effect for Clay County, but not all of the county. It's basically right on top of Excelsior Springs, just a little bit east of Kearney, Missouri right now, over on the extreme east side of Clay County. And again, just a tiny little area of real estate. These are two of the smallest tornado-warned coverage areas that I've ever seen. But again, that's the nature of these cells. They're tiny, they're very small and compact, but we've had a couple of them that have become rather robust here, and that's what prompted these warnings. The time right now is 12 minutes past 2 o'clock. This tornado warning scheduled to go until 2:30 this afternoon, and I'm going to stay on the air and walk you through this storm. In fact, I'm going to take control of the radar over here again. We're going to zoom in on this because this has now changed its shape just a little bit more. It appears to be maybe pulsing back up again, and that would be a bit of a concern too. I don't like to see that happening. Now it appears to be more on the northwest side of Excelsior Springs. That's where the color is, but keep in mind it's this notched area that would be producing that rotation. And let me go ahead and stop the loop on this, shifting that just a little bit. There we go. So we have now the tornado warning would appear to be, and I'm going to put a telestrator on this to kind of get you down a little bit closer. This would be where the rotation would be. Again, you have the outbound and the inbound winds that are right there, right next to each other, which would indicate circulation. And now let's zoom in just a little bit further. I know I'm kind of cluttering up your screen a little bit, but again, this is very important. So North Jesse James Road, if you live just east of that, and especially from about Salem Road, Grand Avenue, North Main Street, over towards West County Line Road. If these roads mean anything to you, if you're near them at all, you need to be taking shelter immediately. So This would be basically put it from downtown Excelsior Springs all the way to the north side of town, anywhere close to Northeast 142nd Terrace, to West County Line Road, Salem Road, Kennedy Street, Grand Avenue, and again, all of this just north of Excelsior Springs. If you live anywhere close to this area, you need to be below ground and taking shelter as soon as you can. Okay, now that I have it pulled out a little bit, I just wanted to point out that notched area, and this is what I'm going to continue following. Right inside of that yellow arrow, that's what I'm going to be tracking, and I'll track that all the way through eastern Clay County, and that may be shifting a little bit over the county line right now, and I'll keep track of that as well. If this continues in that same direction, let's get a couple of towns that may be in the path. Again, these storms have a history of basically just dropping a little tornado, and then they kind of seem to fizzle out a little bit. But if you live in the vicinity of Lawson or even Polo, you need to have a heads up right now. Now, the tornado sirens wouldn't surprise me at all in Lawson if those are going off right now. Polo and looks like you're okay in Plattsburgh, at least from this particular cell for now. Okay, we're going to come to me in the Weather Center. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to show you what I'm doing. I'm over here manipulating the Doppler radar so I can look at this and kind of just going on the fly. I'm just looking at things that I want to look at as a meteorologist, and I'm just sharing those with you kind of on the fly as we do this. But of prime importance right now is the tornado warning. It is in effect for Clay County, not the entire county, but basically from Lawson to Excelsior Springs, just covering that extreme northeast corner of Clay County. Very small amount of real estate, probably no more than about 10 to 15 square miles of that county that's under this tornado warning. But again, it is a tornado warning in Excelsior Springs area, up towards Excelsior Estates, and then up near Lawson. You should be taking shelter right now from that particular storm. Let's go ahead and put some motion into this, and we can look at the movement of it. The movement is actually from south to north, and you see where this notches in? That's the notched in area that I'm looking at that would be, well, essentially where the tornado would be if it's still producing one. So just east and northeast of Excelsior Springs. If you live east of Highway 69 between Excelsior Springs and Lawson, that's of prime concern right now. You need to be below ground. No question about that. So Lawson, Excelsior Springs, east of Highway 169. West of Highway 169, go ahead and take shelter as well. But if you live west of I-35, Holt and Kearney, you guys are in the clear. There's Storm Tracker 5 that you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of your frame. It is now north of Kansas City, moving up towards Excelsior Springs. We're going to check to see if this tornado actually touched down and if there is damage. And if there is, we will be letting you know. Would love to get a history of this and see what that storm has been doing. Also, if you look also into the upper right-hand corner of your television set, you can see the dark skies. That is likely not the cell that you're looking at with those dark skies. We have cells that are actually in between, even bigger cells, but the big cells are not producing the tornadic activity. It appears to be the smaller cells between Excelsior Springs now and about Lawson that would be producing that. So once again, a very tight look. And how about some roads on this? So West 152nd Street, over towards West County Line Road, Lover's Lane, Northeast 158th Street, especially if you live anywhere east of Highway 69. So east of Highway 69, over towards West 158th Street, West County Line Road, West 152nd Street, Highway Y, and Ray County Line Road. So if those roads mean anything to you, and especially if you live along those roads, you need to be taking shelter immediately as this storm moves off to the north and almost due north at about, it looks to be a 20 to 21 mile per hour pace. So that is going to put it up in the Excelsior Estates area very, very quickly. In fact, let's take a look at that. Excelsior Estates, 161st Street, Salem Road, and Ray County Line Road, Pine Road as well. all the way up to about West 168th Street. You should no longer delay. You should be heading below ground or to your safe shelter. If you don't have a below ground house, you can always go to an interior room. Again, this does not appear to be a strong, wide, super damaging tornado. It looks to be a smaller variety, meaning that you can go to an interior room of your house. You want to stay away from windows, no question about that, and take shelter until the tornado sirens have stopped. In fact, stay there until we give you the all clear. Right now, the National Weather Service has this tornado warning going until 2:30 this afternoon. So below shelter now, you've got another 10 minutes, maybe 11 minutes to go on this before it appears as though this storm may either weaken. We'll see if it's extended, though. This cell is held together just a little bit longer, and you can see it's almost broken up, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. It's almost broken up into two different cells right there. That's the storm system that I'm looking at with the two cells, but of course, as we zoom in, it's actually the notched area in between that had the greatest rotation. I'm going to throw that scope back on this again. Gosh, I don't see much of anything. Well, this is great news, though. I don't see much of anything for rotation here. The less gate-to-gate sheer color I see, the better I like it. Again, it was much, much tighter in its rotation just a bit ago. This appears to be weakening somewhat. Now there's just a huge area of more broad rotation, but I don't see anything in here that would indicate anything that's really tight. I know that was a bad job there of trying to describe that. I'm going to go over to the, and make myself full screen again here, just to point out a couple of things that I wanted to show you. This is the main area of the storm that's being warned right now. This is a Doppler radar scope. What it does is it can tell me which way the winds are going and how fast. I don't see terribly strong velocities within this, although I do see what appears to be a little bit of turbulence, although nothing that would indicate gate-to-gate shear or a strong tornado signature. That's great news. That is now just north of Excelsior Springs, moving up towards the Excelsior Estates area. We already talked about some of the roads, and I'll revisit that, but it appears as though the more dangerous portion of this would be east of Highway 69, north of Excelsior Springs, almost at the midway point now between Excelsior Springs and Excelsior Estates. That is in effect until 2:30. Right now I have my time indicated as 2:21, so another 9 minutes to go on this. And the fact that this appears to be weakening somewhat is giving me a lot of pleasure. So hopefully this is not going to be a dangerous storm for much longer. I'm going to go ahead and revisit this again, and if you want to take this other camera over at the weather podium, I'll be happy to kind of walk you through what I'm doing. Once again, we're just kind of going on the fly here, and what I'm doing now is just looking and basically analyzing the storm. So you're kind of analyzing the storm with me while we're going through this. Again, between Crystal Lakes, Excelsior Springs, and Excelsior Estates, not a lot of territory in there. It's a pretty tight area. That's where the area of most likelihood would be. I don't see much rotation out of this anymore, which is fantastic. But again, we're going to continue to revisit it because these storms have been pulsing up and they seem to collapse away right away, and they pulse right back up again. And we have been showing you pictures from Storm Track 5, and the Storm Tracker is going to be out there checking on that storm as well. Okay, let's look at a much broader view of this. Now let's put the scope on this once again. Again, this is the Doppler radar scope. We can look at the winds inside of the storm. And I think you can probably start to see, if you look in between those towns yourself, that there is an area of rotation right in there, but it doesn't appear to be tight rotation. It appears to be a little more broad, but there's definitely some winds that are churning within this storm. No question about that as it moves up towards the Excelsior Estates area. And so long as this tornado warning is still up and going, then the tornado sirens will be going off in eastern areas of Clay County. Excelsior Springs, it appears as though that storm has now moved north out of town. But again, if you hear the sirens outside, stay in your safe shelter. It's only for another few minutes, hopefully. But again, you'll want to stay there. Don't leave that safe shelter just yet. Excelsior Estates, you have a minute or two, but you should be scrambling right now in your house to get down below ground or in your safe shelter. And as I said before, these storms don't appear to be powerful in nature enough to do serious damage, but these what appear to be weaker tornadoes certainly could do some. So if you don't have a basement, that's fine. Go into an interior room, especially an interior room without windows. You might want to turn the television volume up a little bit so you can keep it right here, and I'll talk you through this while you're in the other room, and then we'll give you the all clear when it's okay to come back out again. All right, we'll put this to an end. And I am going to take another close look at this as I broaden this back out again, because I did want to point a couple of things out. Again, when we're looking at these storms, these are the tiny ones. It appears as though the weakest of the storms are the most capable of producing the tornadoes. The larger storms certainly are not doing that. Again, once again to reiterate, this has not been a day where you would anticipate tornadic weather. I'm sorry, Sarah, what was that? Okay, let's take some video out of Smithville. Yeah, that's it. You can see a lowering in the storm. I'm going to go ahead and walk over to the key wall because I want to point out some of the structure on this. Okay, yep, they're getting some funnel clouds out of that.
We really showed up in our pajamas.
That would be weak in nature. Yeah, those are small, weak, but they look to be funnel clouds that, if not tornadic.
There's two.
Oh my God. We really
yes, these are tight little vortices here. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and take the audio of the people and we'll get a look at what they're seeing. Sometimes they can actually see more than the camera can.
There's two.
Oh my God. We really showed up in our pajamas.
That's a tornado.
Okay, yeah, you saw it yourself.
Oh my God.
Not very strong.
We really showed up in our pajamas.
That doesn't, to me anyway, appear to be more than maybe some small limb breakers, but tornadoes nonetheless. And when they're on the ground, of course, we go into action, and we're going to keep it right here until that threat no longer exists. Keep in mind, this was the Smithville storm. That was a tiny little cell, which right now is pretty much all but fizzled out, located right about there. But then on the east side of Clay County, we have another one. Now, the cell's probably doing about the same thing, and as I was talking before, these don't appear to be big, strong tornadoes. They appear to be small, weak little vortices, and again, but strong enough to prompt those tornado warnings, and it certainly was justified, as you saw from that video in Smithville. But in the Excelsior Springs area, I would expect the exact same thing, kind of a not very well-defined lowering, kind of a ragged little area that maybe would give you a spin up or two. And again, very weak in nature. And typically when tornadoes like this, this tornado warning has now been allowed to expire. So again, they were seeing the same thing that I was seeing over there as well, that rotation has no longer maintained itself. So again, we're not going to keep you away from your program any longer. I just want to wrap things up here by letting you know that you saw a video from the Smithville area that was confirmed at least one and potentially two very weak little tornadoes from the clouds. We don't have video just yet, but we're hoping to get some from the Excelsior Springs area. There should be plenty of video on that because it looked like the main part of that storm and rotating part of the storm would be essentially right over the city. This is a look at the tornado. Weak as it may be, tornadoes nonetheless, and potentially two. That was in the Smithville vicinity. But the ones over Excelsior Springs, probably looking very, very similar to the ones that you're looking at here. These likely didn't last for more than about 30 seconds or so. And of course, we'll have crews in the area and we'll check it out. And if there has been any damage from that or that secondary little funnel, we'll be sure to find that and gather it up for you. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and send you back to your regular programming. Once again, just keep in mind that these little cells, and now that they've produced two tornado warnings, we're going to stay on this for the remainder of the afternoon. I'll keep an eye on that. No need to keep you here, though. That tornado warning for Clay County has been allowed to